Good morning, everybody. Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI, as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We're here for UFC 256. We've got Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno. Should be a hell of a card. 7 out of 10 fights on this fight card are scheduled to end inside the distance. And let's kick things off. First fight of the night, we've got Chase Hooper taking on Peter Barrett. Peter Barrett earned the moniker Slippery Pete. You watched his last fight against Youssef Zalal, where he was put in a lot of tough positions and simply would not be submitted. He's in for an interesting affair here where you have Chase Hooper, who is there to be had on a platter, but he hasn't really faced a heavy hitter who is precise and can take him out. Tamor couldn't get it done. And now Barrett gets his shot. Barrett coming in at 6,900 in DraftKings plus 250 at the betting window, 11-4 record. Has fought in the Cage Titans promotion and racked up a number of TKO victories. Chase Hooper, when I watched him on the Contender Series, I was wondering how the hell did this kid get this opportunity. Now, 21 years of age, 9,300 in DK, your highest priced fighter on this card from DraftKings perspective, minus 325 favorite. The thing about Barrett is he makes some bonehead decisions out there. He's a journeyman of sorts, and I see him putting himself in situations where Chase Hooper is going to use his grappling edge, and he's a squirmy, long grappler who simply finds a way, and he can take some punishment. Hooper, I wish he would have taken a couple of years off and refined his skill set, maybe put on some weight and moved up a division, but that isn't the case. I'll be picking Chase Hooper to win inside the distance, and this is more of a fade of Barrett here. I think Barrett could get the TKO, but more likely than not, I think we're going to see Chase Hooper come out and finish Barrett. Positionally, he's just got many advantages, especially if this hits the mat. And that moniker, Slippery Pete, I think we're going to toss that out the window here. Next up, we have women's 115-pounders, where we have Sam Hughes making her promotional debut, taking on Tecia Torres. Tecia Torres, the veteran of the sport. 7,300 for Hughes, plus 430 underdog. That is correct, plus 430. And then we have Tecia Torres coming in at 8,900 in DK, but you have a minus 630 favorite. Only problem here is that this fight is expected to go to a decision, and Tecia Torres is not the highest output fighter there. So I know a lot of people are seeing line value here in DraftKings, but just be aware that this fight is likely to go to a decision. In fact, it's lined at minus 270 to go to a decision. Hughes, I went back and watched the tape on her. She's made some strides. You watch her earlier fights. There was a fight that I watched against Lauren Bonjour, who is now 0-1, and Hughes, I'm trying to put this nicely, but she pushed Bonjour against the cage and then just didn't do much with it against someone who is a very, very low-level opponent. Now, Tecia Torres is going to be a major, major step up in competition. And the one thing I'll say about Hughes is there's been a big-time progression. That fight took place in 2019. And here we are in 2020, and Hughes is getting a shot here. She's a former collegiate runner who ran cross-country and similar in a way to Avila in that made the transition from track and field to mixed martial arts. Though this is a huge step up in competition. You watch Tecia Torres. Torres has fought a murderer's row of fighters at 115 pounds. In her last fight against Brianna Van Buren, she was the tiny tornado was in full effect. Let's just say that. In this spot, I see you watch the camp that she did with Gillian Robertson and Pennington, and seemed to be putting in some work this time around. Don't want to spend too much time on this fight, but I'll be picking Tecia Torres to win, and likely via decision. Next up, we have this is going to be a hell of a fight. We've got Gavin Tucker taking on Billy Quarantillo. Quarantillo, 15-2 record, 8,500 in DraftKings, minus 165 betting favorite. This line originally opened much closer. Now it's widened significantly. Gavin Tucker, very well-rounded fighter, 7,700 plus 135 at the betting window. Tucker starting to get up there in age, 34 years old. Doesn't fight that often. 12-1 record, fighting out of Nova Scotia. Came in with a head of steam. Fought Sam Cecilia, looked great in that fight. That was a few years ago. Then he had the fight against Rick Glenn, and we saw what happened there against a longer fighter with tremendous cardio. And then we saw Gavin Tucker rattle off a couple of wins, take a few years off. I was on Tucker against Janes, saw some glaring weaknesses in Janes, especially as far as the stand-up goes. He's like a sitting duck out there. Now, Quarantillo is one of these fighters who will not go away. He gets better as the fight goes on. He appeared to be the larger fighter when you were watching weigh-ins yesterday. Maybe not as technically sound as Gavin Tucker. Both of these guys are black belts. And the difference maker here in the camp that Quarantillo has with Matt Arroyo and Steamroller Fravola, Matt Fravola, these guys, iron sharpens iron in that gym, and there's no quit whatsoever in either of these fighters. I was very impressed with Quarantillo's effort against Spike Carlisle. And then you saw a improvement against also Kyle Nelson in the stand-up department. Quarantillo, 32 years of age. I see Tucker having some early success out there, and then Quarantillo coming back, taking over this fight, especially in the second, third round, and winning this one. So give me Billy Quarantillo. Next up, we have another battle between two black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters. We've got women's 115-pounders. Mackenzie Dern taking on Verna Jandiroba. Jandiroba, 16-1 record, veteran of the sport, Invicta fighter, 32 years of age. Was kind of thrown to the wolves in her debut against Carla Esparza, got taken down and grinded out in that fight. 7,500 for Jandiroba, plus 150 underdog. Impressive performance against Mallory Martin. And then you saw what she did, made easy work of Felice Herrig. On the other side of the fight, you have Mackenzie Dern, who has exhibited some questionable behavior in fights on the scales, also outside of the octagon. Never a good look when you're asked to leave a gym. I believe the MMA lab at one point sent her packing. 8,700 in DK. She's a minus 180 favorite. You look up and down Mackenzie Dern's resume, you see the wins over Amanda Bobby Cooper, the Yoder split decision, got worked by Amanda Ribas, and then she took on Hannah Cyphers and Randa Marcos. Did what she had to do in those fights. You watch the tape and you see that Jandiroba, I believe, is more positionally sound, a conservative fighter. And then Dern takes these risks, and she's the better athlete. She's more powerful. Both of these fighters have killer instinct. And this fight should be lined more closely, in my opinion. I was questioning whether or not to take the shot on Jandiroba, and then I have questions about Jandiroba's athleticism, and she on the feet isn't a threat in the stand-up department, whereas Mackenzie Dern is. And I think this fight is nullified on the ground. I'll actually give Jandiroba a little bit of an edge on the ground here. And stand-up wise, I think that is going to be the difference maker in this spot. This is a toss-up, though. This is a very closely lined fight. I would line this closer to a pick'em, but I'll be picking Mackenzie Dern in this spot. If Jandiroba's stand-up was a little bit more clean and she had heavier hands and she had more of an output, I would be more likely to pick her. But I'll be picking Mackenzie Dern in this spot. Next up, we head to the 145-pound division, where we have kill or be killed Daniel Pineda, 35 years of age, 27-13 record. You look at this guy, if he's going to win, he wins by finish. Taking on Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson, 26-11 record, 7,900 in DK, plus 130 underdog. I see a lot of folks maybe off Cub Swanson here because of his surgery that he had. He blew out his knee in the quintet that they held last year. Actually, he's competing a year to the day exactly to when the injury took place. This fight's not expected to go to a decision at minus 155. Pineda is a very aggressive fighter, but so is Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson, one way Cub Swanson excels is actually off of his back foot. When fighters come at him, he's able to pop shots off, and if he has fighters coming at them, he can make them look silly. You go back to the Doo-Ho Choi fight, and there have been many others. In this spot, you're going to have an aggressive fighter in Pineda who is willing to take the fight to the ground, and Swanson is he'll go there. One thing that I think of Juan Archuleta and TJ Dillashaw and how they looked in their last fights, and Archuleta looked superhuman out there against Patrick Mix. And Cub Swanson, I know he's putting in work. I have no doubt that he's going to be ready for this fight, but Pineda's going to throw the kitchen sink at him, and I'll be slightly leaning Pineda. I'll be picking Pineda in this spot, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Swanson come out and be the sharper of the two. Next up, we head to the heavyweight division, where we have Junior Dos Santos taking on Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane, 6-0 record. He's a newbie, yet 30 years old, 9,200, minus 415 betting favorite. You watch the footwork of Gane, supremely athletic, but he's also facing a supremely athletic specimen in Junior Dos Santos, still at 36 years of age, has the movement, has the volume, has the cardio, $7,000 plus 305 underdog. You look at the reach advantage. There's a significant reach advantage here for Gane. I see JDS coming out here sharp as ever, looking to be up on the scorecards if it heads that way, and then all of a sudden getting cracked and dropped. And it's interesting. You watch and you look at the fight against Tanner Boser. Tanner Boser is a really tough guy to finish, and he's extremely evasive. Junior Dos Santos is going to pose, in a way, some of those same elements, except the thing is, JDS, when he gets clipped, he goes down, and I do see that happening at some point. I know some folks may be looking at the over and playing that here. I think that is playing with fire against somebody in JDS who he could potentially, all it takes is one shot for him to get put out of there. So I'll be picking Gane here, and I think he gets it done inside the distance. The only thing about Gane is he's content sitting back and winning a striking-based decision. So it depends on how much respect he gives JDS. You look at the Boser-Arlovsky fight, and Boser could have won that fight, yet he was his own worst enemy, held back, was tentative, and didn't exchange in the pocket. And Gane is going to have to do that here if he wants to take JDS out. So I'll be picking Gane here. Next up, we have a fight where the line has continued to close. We've got Ronaldo Jacare-Souza taking on Kevin Holland. Souza 26-8 record, $8,000 in DraftKings. There is some serious line value here. $8,000 minus 115. Betting favorite. Actually, this fight is a pick'em right now across the board. You've got Kevin Holland also minus 115 over at DSI, 8,200 in DK. Kevin Holland 20-5 record. This guy's been racking up wins. This is one of those cases where you look at recency bias, and I do believe it's amplified on a number of bouts on this card. Kevin Holland coming in with a big reach advantage, can fight at 170 pounds. And then you look at the other side of the fight, Souza coming down from 205. Originally was supposed to fight Uriah Hall, and that fight got scrapped due to coronavirus. This is a tricky matchup. Kevin Holland, we know he can, despite being a high-level grappler and jiu-jitsu fighter, can be controlled on the ground, and it's worrisome that he could get his back taken here. It's happened before. He could get dominated on the ground. Though you watch the other side of the fight, and Jacare, he has been stiff as a board on the feet for years now. He was picked apart by Chris Weidman for most of the fight, and then came out late and took Chris out of there with a shot that landed on the forehead. Very strange outcome. Also took Derek Brunson out of there. So it's a little deceiving, although he does look defensively like there's a liability. He's been able to hang in there. The Hermanson fight, Jack Hermanson was able to dance around, do what he had to do. The question is, does Kevin Holland have what it takes from a grappling perspective if Souza is able to get in on those hips and go for the takedown? So this may be a live wagering opportunity here. If Souza does come out and win the first round, I see Holland turning the tables. And at 41 years of age, I wonder how much cardio is in the tank. I know Holland has traditionally fallen apart down the stretch, and both of these guys may be huffing and puffing. You watch the Gerald Mearshart fight, etc. I don't know how anybody could really have confidence in picking this fight, because Kevin Holland's fight IQ has been questionable for a number of years now, and he just, even in interviews, he makes bonehead decisions in the fight, and it has come back to haunt him. So I actually was considering playing Holland here, and I'm taking a step back here. I like Kevin Holland to win this fight, but you're playing with fire against Jacare. So I'll be picking Kevin Holland though. All right, next up we have really interesting fight at lightweight, where we have Renato Moicano taking on Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev 8,400 in DK, minus 140 at the betting window. And Fiziev 8-1 record. Renato Moicano 14-3-1 record. ATT fighter who really looked great as he ended up gaining weight, coming up a weight class. 31 years of age for Moicano. And you look at fights that could potentially have some value here, especially in DraftKings. Moicano is he's an interesting specimen because he has a ground game. He has a jiu-jitsu ground game. We don't see it that often. We did see it last time out against the Hadjovic fight. But he's typically a volume striker who uses his movement as a significant strength. Problem is, though, Fiziev is cream of the crop here and lightning quick and is a supreme counter striker and looks better every time out. 8-1 overall record for Fiziev, and that is a bit deceiving because he comes in an extremely polished striker. He has been finished against Mustafayev, and you watch that fight, got caught. We've seen Moicano get caught a number of times counter-striking. Moicano has Fiziev beat if this fight does hit the mat. Moicano could potentially win this fight via decision based on a volume-based approach. Problem is he going to be able to hold up at 155 pounds, taking these heavy strikes from Fiziev? Because I've no doubt that Fiziev is going to be able to land. It's just a matter of is Moicano going to be able to hold up here? And I could see Fiziev winning this fight inside the distance. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 135. And this is one of those fights where it honestly could go either way. I agree that this fight should have been a pick'em. I don't like how it's currently lined here. I'm going to ever so slightly lean Fiziev, and I'll be picking Fiziev, but I'm not counting Moicano out one bit. I've been high on Moicano throughout his career, and I do think in the Aldo fight, this is a guy who's cutting huge weight, and he's doing him. I know you gain a competitive advantage when you're the bigger guy in the octagon most of the time, but it seemed to be doing himself a disservice as far as his brain health. So I'll be picking Fiziev, but very closely lined fight and close affair. Next up, we've got the co-main event of the evening where we have Tony Ferguson taking on Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Oliveira coming in the plus 140 underdog, 7,600 in DraftKings. Tony Ferguson, 25-4 record, was rattled off 12 consecutive wins in a row. Now getting up there in age, Ferguson, 36 years old, 8,600 in DraftKings, minus 170 betting favorite. This fight, I believe you are going to want a part of here. Wow. Oliveira, finisher. I am concerned if Oliveira is able to clamp down on something in this spot. We haven't seen Tony Ferguson really react to a grappler on the level of Oliveira. You could say the Anthony Pettis fight is similar in a sense, but Pettis, in my eyes, was on his way out, and I know he has a fight against Alex Morono coming up. The folks have fallen here, but we've got Oliveira in this spot who is really a man on fire coming in here, and he is going to have tremendous momentum. The problem I have with Oliveira is traditionally we've seen him crack in certain circumstances. Last night I tweeted about the fight against Tamor and how that seemed to be a turning point. He's quit on numerous occasions, and he absorbed a brutal eye poke in that fight. Also was floored by David Timur, and came back showing some resiliency. Tony Ferguson is coming off of a brutal, hellacious beating at the hands of Justin Gaethje. I know he's exhibited some strange behavior throughout his career, both inside and outside the octagon. Has some pretty fabulous wins over RDA in Mexico City, and man, you watch Ferguson's fight against Cerrone, etc. If he's able to get humming, if he's able to get going, then there should be Ferguson's fight to win. The problem is, though, Charles Oliveira is extremely dangerous, especially in the smaller octagon. You see, he put Paul Felder in some really, really tough spots, and then cracked and folded in there. And Tony Ferguson is the supreme. You talk about mental toughness. I don't think there is a stronger mentally fighter than Tony Ferguson when the octagon door gets closed. Lando Venata had success against him. Anthony Pettis had success against Tony Ferguson. There have been others. If Oliveira is able to get going, I could see him winning this fight and taking Ferguson out of there. It depends on how that damage really has affected Ferguson. I will be picking Tony Ferguson, though. I think that if and when he's able to get through an initial onslaught from Oliveira, and that could be all it takes for Oliveira, then the tables should turn, especially if this fight does get extended. The thing about this, though, is Ferguson, I believe, I know he likes to fight in a phone booth, but that is dangerous against Oliveira because that gives him opportunity to work his magic in there. And I'd like to see if Snapdown City is in effect, if these guys want to challenge each other on the ground. You've got Shoot It Box versus 10th Planet. And, woo, should be a great fight. So give me Tony Ferguson in this fight, but it should be a barn burner. And, oh, man, I am so looking forward to this one. Next event, we've got the main event of the evening. I can barely get out my words here. We've got main event of the evening, Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno. Both of these fighters have been money makers for me throughout the years. And Figueiredo, 20-1 record, lone loss to Jussier Formiga. Taking on Brandon Moreno, who has a win over Formiga. Moreno, 27 years of age, still improving, growing. Was actually, he left the UFC, came back. Has been a man on fire. 7,200 in DK, plus 250 underdog. Coming in off of that glorious finish of Brandon Royval. We saw what he did to Kai Kara France, though I'll be honest, he was getting picked apart at times against Kai Kara France early, but there was a big difference in power. I was on Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara France. Figueiredo, $9,000 in DraftKings, minus 325 betting favorite. Moreno's going to be coming in here with the reach advantage. Both of these fighters, dangerous on the ground. Moreno could look here to initiate some scrambles, and that's where he works his magic. We saw what he did as a big-time underdog against Luis Smolka a while ago. You watch Figueiredo's fights against Joseph Benavidez, both of them. You watch his fight against Tim Elliott. You watch the fight against Pantoja, very interesting, because although Figueiredo was getting the better of Pantoja, and you saw the damage that he was inflicting there, he did lose some steam late in that fight. And then you watch MMA math doesn't necessarily work, but I think it's worth watching the fights for Moreno against Pantoja as well, especially the second one. Moreno came in, locked in, was making his hay on the feet, getting the leg kicks going early, and then kind of hit a wall and started to get picked apart. You saw the discrepancy in skill set when it came to stand-up and precision striking, and I think that is going to be the difference maker in this fight, that Figueiredo is He's going to have the timing. He's going to have the not necessarily the pace, but he'll have the timing and the power in this spot, and the counter striking is going to be huge. I want to see who is going to take the center of the octagon here. You saw the weigh-ins yesterday. Both guys mean business. Both guys made weight. And this is going to turn into a dogfight. And I don't see this one going the distance. I think that the power of Deiveson Figueiredo is going to be just a little too much here. We know officially, you look at Moreno's record, and he's never been finished as far as professionally goes. He was finished by Pantoja, rear naked choke on Contender Series, but I have questions about the damage meter for Pantoja in this spot. He does get cut open in fights, and even in the Rival fight, he was didn't get touched up that much, but he was leaking a little bit there. So I think we're going to see Figueiredo win this fight, and I love these flyweights right now. Actually, since 2017, I've been hitting the flyweights at an 84% clip, 38 out of 45 correct when making plays on men's flyweight fights. I don't even know how that's possible, to be honest, but I've been tracking these plays since 2017 and just seems to be in my wheelhouse. So I'll be picking Figueiredo here, and looking forward to this. If you want to follow me on Twitter, Mike's MMA Picks. If you'd like to support the cause and get after my premium plays, they can be had at MMA Oddsbreaker Premium. We've had a hell of a year in 2020. It's we're up 40 units, and average play for all time is 1.69 units. So chip it away, every single card, doing our thing. Go get what's yours, my friends. Happy UFC 256 fight day, my friends. Let's do this.